Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, Kiender.co.uk. Kiender stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So today I'm taking a look at Raising Robots. This is a new game from Novel Games, thank you for the review copy, and it's recently fulfilling off Kickstarter and it's been getting a decent amount of buzz. You know, some people have been really loving it, but generally it's had positive reviews and positive looks across the way. I didn't know much about it going in because I've been toning down my Kickstarter purchases, but it definitely looks striking from the cover and you know, it's got the sort of cartoony cutesy artwork, so I figured it was going to be quite a light theme. But when I opened the box and got into, well, we'll get onto components that a bit later, but into the actual gameplay, I noticed it bared a lot of similarities to another game called Wingspan, one of Stonemaier's more popular releases back in the old days, when I felt like they were putting out the really good games. But this one is different enough from Wingspan. There are some similarities, but there's definitely some key differences here. And of course, does that mean it's one that can be, you know, sit alongside it in the collection, or could one replace the other? We'll have to see. So in Raising Robots, you essentially have a board with 3 rows on it, and these rows are very much like the Wingspan boards with the 3 different habitats, except we're not dealing with animals here, we're dealing with robots. Essentially, players are constructing robots which will provide different abilities, but the 3 different rows correspond to 3 different actions that you can perform, in addition to a couple of other side actions which are unrelated. And the idea is that with these various robots that you create and the actions, you're effectively trying to build an engine up over 8 rounds, which is played predominantly simultaneously with the other players, and you're utilizing action cards to dictate what you're going to do for the round, except this is hidden in secret to begin with. And so with these cards, you're basically just trying to generate resources and victory points, much like any other engine builder, and do it the most efficiently and create like cool combos along the way. In the rounds though, you have these 5 action cards, but what happens first is everybody has a deck of energy cards, and I'm going to try and make sure the light doesn't reflect off these too much, but these energy cards essentially dictate kind of like the power level of the abilities you're trying to trigger. The abilities have all got different power levels on there, like, you know, if an unupgraded version has a level 2 requirement, the next one has a level 4, so you need more power to do more like really cool actions, or, you know, maybe you don't need as much power if you've upgraded the ability to be more efficient. But the idea is that you'll reveal 2 of these energy cards as, you know, at the start of a round, and then in secret, players will select from the 5 different actions via these cards and place them underneath the energy cards. So if I've revealed these 2, for example, then I will decide whether I want to do, I'll do design here, I might do upgrade here. And then players will reveal these actions, and depending on the energy card that was used, there might be some bonus energy cubes thrown into the mix into a kind of shared pool, and then you'll go through the actions in a particular sequence, triggering them simultaneously, so you can kind of do your own thing on your own board, but you can only do actions that you revealed cards for, or have energy cubes in the shared pool. So you may not necessarily do every action every round. And of course, depending how much power you have available will dictate how good the action is going to be. This will essentially rinse and repeat for 8 rounds, and then at the end, of course, the one with the most points.
Of course!
So the obvious good bit is components. Even if you buy the retail version of this, you're still getting pretty good components. Retail has mostly cardboard pieces, so you'll punch them out of cardboard and these will reflect the tokens and various other bits. They're still good quality cardboard. It's not like it's cheap or flimsy, it will do the job nicely. But if you do fork out for the deluxe version, whoo-wee, this is well produced. I mean, the artwork is the same throughout, and the artwork is beautiful. It is really good, really nice, colourful artwork, and some really cool like pictures of these robots which come in all sorts of weird guises. I mean, I've got one in front of me here that looks kind of like a roulette table with a slot machine on top, and it's essentially a robot like that. Kind of odd, but there's a lot of weird quirky designs here, and I can just tell that whoever did the artwork for this probably had a field day coming up with half of these ideas.
Your mother
Even the boards themselves, they're very colourful, very striking, and of course if you have the deluxe version it means that you're getting upgraded wooden components, and there's quite a lot. I mean, this is just a handful that I have in my hand. You've also got chunky yellow cubes for these energy things, but put it this way. This is a bag that I typically do when I play games. I bag things up by player, so players can simply take the bag and they've got all their stuff in here. This is jam-packed full with wooden bits and the few cards that they need. I mean, you have got, the different inventory resource tokens that you have on the top of your board, but then you've also got a motley collection of all these like thick wooden upgrade tokens of different types. You've got a Meeple that you put around your board, you've got the energy cubes themselves. There's quite a lot of good production value in here. Now, it's not necessarily the cheapest game in the world as a result, but if this is one that you're thinking of keeping, I do partially recommend grabbing the deluxe version if you can, because it's just going to be a very nice striking package.
Demand suddenly skyrocketed. You all saw it.
The game pulls a fast one on you in terms of its graphic design and rule set as well. When I opened the game up and got the stuff out, it does look kind of, busy in terms of a lot of the iconography and the different abilities that go off and the cards and everything. There's like a bit of an overwhelming amount of information that sort of flies at you as you open the game up, and I thought, oh my god, this is going to be really complex, really fiddly. How am I going to deal with all this? Surprisingly though, give it a chance. The rulebook is very easy to use and very clear. I mean, I didn't really have much trouble following this. And yes, it looks like a big rulebook, but this is like giant size font, easy to read font, and a lot of pictorial examples. It's a really solid rulebook all round, frankly. And once you're done with this, you probably won't have to reference many rules in it. You've got a very good summary on the back with all the key iconography that you kind of need. There's a separate sheet to go into the different player powers that you can have. So once you know what your player power does, you can kind of toss the sheet away for the most part. But it was surprisingly smooth to play. I was taught this first. I didn't actually learn it myself at first. I sort of thought, right, I've read the rulebook, this is pretty cool. Then I went to a game night, someone taught it to me, and I was surprised that, yeah, it does actually kind of gel nicely. It's smooth, the rules aren't complicated, and the graphic design does a good job of highlighting what things are. The actions have arrows to say what order they're done in. All the robots have the same layout, and it's pretty easy to tell, right, that's the cost, that's the victory points, that's where it goes, and here are the two abilities that could trigger off it. There's no weird exceptions to the rule in this game. Everything kind of works as you would expect it. Even the energy cards and how that works, pretty smooth experience. You flip the cards over, put the cubes out in a shared pool, and then you can see clearly which actions you're allowed to do at what power levels, via this little central board. Really, the only minor sort of fiddly thing is just having all these upgrade tokens everywhere on various slots, so you don't actually know what the upgrade does until you take the token off it, so maybe there's a little bit of fiddling around with that, but that's a pretty minor niggle. Overall, it's a lot smoother than it gives its, than it tries to portray, and I know this is probably going to scare off a few people when they look at it and go, oh my word, what is this? But stick with it. Trust me, it's simpler than it looks.
I don't get it.
The replay value in this game is pretty solid, actually. I mean, there is a lot of these robots. This is the robots, apart from about 10 that I've got on my board here from a solo game I was doing. But this is the size of the deck of robots. There's a lot, and yes, you get these sleeves in the deluxe box. It comes with the sleeve, so you don't even have to buy your own. There's another reason to get the deluxe version. But yeah, there's a lot of robots in here. A lot of different types, a lot of different kinds. The only downside is that, yes, there's a lot of different robots, but the abilities on these do tend to be a little bit samey. There's not that many different variations of the abilities that they have.
Bite my tiny metal ass!
Like I say, you're going to play this game, and you're not going to play that many robots. So much like Wingspan, you're not going to see much of this deck in each play. So there's certainly a lot of different, bits of artwork and different types of abilities that will come up. But even ignoring the robots, two other aspects really add to the replay value. Firstly, I really like the upgrade system. The upgrade system gives you a ton of these little tokens all over your board. So they effectively fill up little slots, and you can upgrade them in any order you see fit. If you ever get to do an upgrade, which is a separate action, or maybe some robots will do it, you can choose any of the tokens you like. You take the token off, it reveals a boost to whatever ability or upgrade action it may be. But then you also take the token and put it on, say, your starting player power or the different robots to upgrade their abilities. So it's not just simply, oh, I'll take this token off the design action so that I get an extra power every time I use the action. Great. I also get to say, right, well, I'm going to put it on this robot here. So now when I use this robot, I get to use the bottom action, which is more powerful. I can decide what I want to take off and where I want to put it, with the slight restriction that the different colors must go on matching colors, except for one player power that gets around it. So I really like that system because you can play a lot of different styles depending on what robot cards you get or what inventor you're using, just simply by upgrades alone. But then the inventors themselves are really cool. I mean, you have got quite a decent amount of these player powers in the game, and I mean, this is just Yo-Yo, for example, that I was using in my last solo game. Each of these have different setup tweaks, they have different abilities going forward, round end abilities, and each of these can be upgraded as well to make their abilities better, and there's a decent amount of them. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 in the box, and that's not like, oh, the deluxe gave me a ton more. No, that's 14 that were in the box. If you've got people who know what they're doing in this game is pretty fast. I mean, we played a free player of this the other day, and we got it done in something like about an hour and a bit. It really was pretty fast. And I'm kid you not, teaching the game, getting it set up, playing it, and taking it down. We did it faster than another group nearby was doing a 5-player game of Last Light. Yeah, you know, the game that's getting all this praise about being a super fast 3x game? Yeah, we finished this in less time than they did, and they started half an hour before us. Okay, you know, this game is somewhat quick, especially with the simultaneous turns. Now, that being said, you probably do want to teach the first turn in turn order so people know what they're doing. That at least needs to be a little bit slower. And obviously, you are still down to the lowest common denominator, because if somebody slows the actions down in a turn, they are going to drag the game out. So playing this with 5 or 6 players, I'm a little bit like, no, I don't particularly want to. It's pretty chaotic, and, you know, 6 players, you're always going to get at least 1 or 2 people dragging it down, not to mention a table space would be insane. But yeah, anywhere up to 4 players, you can play this in a decent, very quick length of time. Now, both this and Wingspan have elements of luck of the draw, and certainly people have used that as a criticism of both games, myself included. I love Wingspan to death, but it's got its flaws. It's not a flawless game. This one, however, I think takes that luck of the draw aspect and probably takes it a little bit further than what Wingspan did, and mostly it comes down to these energy cards that you have, and this is where I'm not the biggest fan of this mechanic in the game.
What?
This is where you draw 2 at random from your deck. Everybody has the same deck unless the inventor says otherwise, and they have varying different levels of power. They may generate cubes, or they may say the cubes are worth double their normal output. Now, the problem is that these are random, entirely randomly drawn from your deck, and you have no way to mitigate this whatsoever. So you may have a turn when you think, right, well, I need a couple of decent high power actions because I want to do this and this round, okay? And then you draw 2 cards and you find that you get a couple of 2s or 3, or maybe even just a 1 even. I mean, you've got 2, yeah, in a typical 3-player game, for example, or is this a solo game? But no, 3-player game, you should have, let's see, 2 2s, 3 3s, 2 4s, and a 1, with varying different levels of cubes in that. So you think, well, you know what, I could really do with a 3 and a 4 this round, because that would mean I could do these actions. And then you draw a 2 and a 1. Oh, well, that sucks. I mean, yeah, the cubes are worth double the output, but the problem with that is that this whole idea of, oh, the shared resource, you're thinking, oh, what will other players want to do? You know, they might want to put down the same action as me. In that case, they might put cubes in the middle. That's entirely a lottery crapshoot, because you have no idea of knowing what actions the other players are going to do. I mean, if they focus entirely on one row and nothing else, then yeah, okay, you could guess that they might go for that one. But there's 2 actions here that don't care what you have in your rows. If you've got the resources, you can always build a robot. And if you've got the resources, you can always do an upgrade. So that's always on the cards. But even then, you kind of need to do all 5 actions in some respect. So when you're looking at a lot of players, particularly when there's a lot of you at the table, how on earth are you supposed to know what they're going to put down? And even then, you don't know whether they're going to be contributing cubes to your particular action. It's like, all right, you might do recycle, but then you've only got 1 card that gives cubes. You might put it on the one that doesn't give cubes. So you can't really predict it. So it just ends up being very random how this board turns out. And as such, my turns can be sometimes scuppered purely by an unlucky draw of energy cards or an unfortunate setup of how the other players decided to do their actions. There's not enough ways to predict what they're going to do.
What am I, psychic?
Another aspect of that luck that really comes into play is the class cards. There's a lot of them, and fair enough for variety. These are basically objectives you can go for, like build a bunch of robots, get a bunch of this upgrade, get a bunch of this resource, that kind of thing. They give you bonus points. It's the bonus cards from Wingspan. Now, the ones from Wingspan were fairly lucky, and certainly it was much better to house rule that with the Arc Nova mechanic to say, draw a couple at the start of the game and then discard one halfway through. The problem with this is, yes, you can end up with 2 of these at least by the end of the game, possibly even more than that, but they are entirely random as to how you get them. And yes, it does say draw 3 and pick 1, but I don't think that's even enough. I might even house rule that to be higher, because a lot of these are very specific, and in order to get a decent amount of points from them, to have any kind of meaning, you need to do really well at these. You can't just simply go, oh, I'll get class D on every single one. It's only 2 points. It's meaningless 2 points. You really want to be getting something like 9 or 13 out of these. But I might have a situation where, start of the game, I decide, I'll pick this one. It wants me to do the pink upgrades. Okay, Cray, I can go for that from the start of the game. But then in the middle of the game, everybody gets to draw more, and you can upgrade in order to draw more as well. So I might go, right, I draw 3. I haven't been doing that, and I don't have much of that. Well, I've just drawn 3 class cards that are useless for me, so I get no extra points. Somebody else draws 3 and goes, oh, I've been doing quite a few upgrades this game. You know what? I can get a fair few points from this. Great, I'll take that one. So by sheer fluke, that player is ahead of me, and it's nothing to do with skill or anything. It's just bad luck of these. And so, I don't know, I wish maybe these were a little bit easier to score points with, or maybe that they shouldn't be a face-down deck. What if they were like a face-up display? Like, say you had, like 8 to 10 of them out on a face-up display at the start of the game, so you knew exactly which ones were available, and then you could gear yourself up to a couple of them, and then when it gives you more as the game goes on, you can go, right, I've been doing this one, I've been getting a lot of gear resources, that card is there, I now take this card. You can see whether anybody else is going for you in competition, but you would be then racing to get that card.
Dear God, what is it like in your funny little brains? It must be so boring.
Now, the game is pretty tight with its resources, and you might think, well, that's not a negative, I like tight games, in which case, fair play. But it's tight enough in this game that you can have some rounds that, even coupled with the whole luck of the draw aspect I mentioned before, you could still just not be able to do a lot because you're 1 short on this resource or don't have any cards to play. And the cards aspect is a big deal because the cards do not come in sufficient quantities in this. There are only 2 ways on the board, 2 or 3 ways to get cards. The design action has a way that you discard your entire hand and draw all but +1. Not the most efficient way of doing it, and you've got to get rid of cards in order to make it worthwhile. But the other way is that there are a couple of little ways to get a wild resource, of which a wild resource could draw a card. But honestly, I'd rather get resources than the cards if I'm doing that. But the problem is that outside of that, you don't generate a lot of cards, unless you find the robots that can give you more cards. And I've had games where players, just because they haven't upgraded those particular actions or just happen to have not drawn robots that give cards, end up with a situation where they just can't physically get enough cards to do anything with. And I had one game where the only reason I even came second place was because I was doing a spam action all the time that gave me a lot of victory points each round. But I practically had half the game where I couldn't do a single assemble action because I had no cards. There was no way for me to draw them. I had no robots to do it. The wild resources were needed for other things. And so, while other people have got like big hands of cards and they go, oh, I fancy playing that and I fancy playing that, and these are worth a lot of points, they're worth playing, I'm sort of sat there not able to have many options, and I didn't feel particularly good while playing. It's not that fun to just spam a single action for victory points all the time, as much as it did allow me to come second, and it was only by 3 points. But I would have liked maybe that it was just a bit easier to draw cards. I mean, Wingspan has an action devoted to drawing cards. So if you need more cards in Wingspan, it's pretty easy to do so. Here, it's a lot harder to get them, and I don't know why it needed to be quite so hard to get them. Why not give players a plentiful supply of cards, and have the action do something different? It just seems a little bit odd, but, some people will really like that tight factor, and if so, then great, you're in luck.
You kids are soft.
The game also does feel very multiplayer solitaire. Yes, you have the fact that people will contribute to the shared pool of energy cubes, but that's literally it. There is no other multiplayer interaction in this game. You play simultaneous turns, you do your own thing, and once you've like got over that flip the 2 cards to see what other people played, that's it. I can block them out of existence, and the rest of the round is entirely my own thing and my own abilities. So yeah, you can play this with 6 players, but honestly, what's the point? It just adds more chaos to the middle thing. I mean, in 6 players, pretty much every single phase is going to get used. You have no idea where the cubes are going to come from, and you can't really plan your turn effectively. Whereas with less players, you can at least have some idea that some actions are probably going to be worse than others, or you have to accept that some actions won't appear in a round, and that can make a big deal.
Wait, my cheating unit malfunctioned.
And I would have liked maybe just a little bit more interaction or a little bit more care as to what other players were doing, because you're not racing for any milestones, you're not racing for particular goals or anything, not even that is in the game. So literally, flip the 2 cards and that's it, you're out of existence. Pretty solitaire, and I think they could have put something in here, you know, especially to set it aside from something like Wingspan, to just make it a little bit more meaningful to shove high player counts on the cover.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
The game has a solo and 2-player variant, although it's a very easy variant to mitigate. Basically, all you do is that you simply take a spare set of phase cards from a player that's not in the game, you lay them out face down and put a certain amount of cubes based on the rulebook. And then depending on whether you're playing solo or 2-player, you reveal so many at a time, you put the cubes out, and these are the actions where they go. That's entirely it. There's no actual AI opponent. All it is just basically a beat your own score thing. And that's a bit of a shame, because I would have liked a cool robot AI that you actually played against to have like a target to, you know, target number or target like thing that meshed you over. But really it doesn't. It's just a luck of the draw which actions get done. Although it does make it a little bit more predictable than say the free player plus, because with multiple players around the table, it's just a lottery crapshoot to see who puts which action cards out. But because these refresh every 2 rounds, you essentially go, right, first time they did upgrade and assemble. Well, I know they can't do that this round, so they've only got to choose 2 out of these 3. So they're likely to pick these ones. Maybe I should plan for that. That actually elevates the solo mode in some respects over the multiplayer play. But then at the end of the day, yes, you're playing a quick game and you get to do all the cool combo building, but it's just beat your own score. And the score values on this are tough. I mean, you do reasonably well at this game, you'll still be ranked as an amateur or average at this. In order to get heroic, epic, and legendary, you've got to score a sick amount of points in this. And the only way you are going to score a sick amount of points is if the stars align for you in respect of, you know, the energy cards that you draw at the time you want, drawing the right class cards that you can easily munchkin despite getting them late in the game. There's a lot of things that have to work out for you in order for your score to get that high, and that just feels a bit demeaning and punishing when you feel like you had a good game, you had fun, and then the scoreboard basically tells you,
Stupid! You're so stupid!
well, sorry, I mean, I drew 2 class cards during a game, and they were for stuff I couldn't do. What can I do? There's nothing I can do to mitigate that. You know, stuff like that kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I just would have liked the solo mode to just have been a bit more interesting than just beat your own score and the like. But at least I give it props for saying that it was, you know, very easy to do. I mean, you can play the 2-player variant easily, you can play the solo variant easily, get the game done in a quick amount of time, and, you know, that's praise. But yeah, I don't know how often I would want to bring it out just for that. So Raising Robots overall does a pretty good job in some aspects, but lets down on a few others. I do really like the variety in this game. The upgrades and the inventors do lead to some cool paths that you can take. Of course, some of that is dictated by the robots that you draw. It looks beautiful on the table, and I was surprised at how easy it was to play and how smooth it was despite the ton of iconography that it throws at you. Normally, I would have expected this to be really fiddly and really clunky, but it doesn't feel that way. It's essentially like a robot that's been nicely oiled. It's doing its job. There's no like bits falling off it. What? The combo building with the cards is still here, even if the abilities aren't the most exciting in the world. You know, I think the Wingspan birds do a better job of that. But there's a lot of decent stuff to talk about with this. But you can overlook some of those flaws as well. You know, the fact that you can play this with 6 players is not necessarily the right way to go about it, because it does make things very chaotic, and of course you're going to need a massive table to do it. It will also upgrade the length of time it takes to play waiting for 6 people to finish. The main problems I do have, though, are the fact that it is very solitaire in nature, despite having all these players at the table. And the luck of the draw aspect, I think, does hurt it quite a bit, because I have to think, right, I need luck of the draw of the robots, I need luck of the draw of my energy deck, I need pretty much a lottery crapshoot as to what other players pick for their actions, and I have a big luck of the draw aspect for the class objective cards. So a lot of that is present, and some of you might argue, well, hang on, isn't that in the other game as well? And it is, but not to this much extent. You know, the bonus objective cards are the main thing with Wingspan. You get some face-up cards to choose from, and there's plenty enough birds to go for. So yes, there's an element of luck there, but there's more here. There's like twice as much here. And maybe we didn't want twice as much here. You know, I wanted just a little bit less, a little bit more control. But those niggles are, you know, sorry, they're not niggles, but those flaws do not take it out of the realms of being something that I would recommend. So I'm overall giving this one a pretty decent 7 out of 10. It's solid, it's good. I give it a seal of endorsement, and I think you probably want to check this out to, you know, if you like these combo building games, if the look strikes you fancy, if you like the idea of some of that replay value, but don't go into this thinking this is going to be like a Wingspan killer or anything of the like. It's an alternate. Wingspan is its own thing. It does its own thing. It's got its own theme, its own mechanics. It uses the row thing, and that's mainly it, apart from just triggering abilities on cards. Here, the upgrade system is certainly unique to this. The look of it is certainly pretty much on par as well. And, you know, the player powers and all the other little bits are cool things to have. It's just those flaws do get in the way of it, I think. You know, I would have liked to have seen a few changes there. But overall, a solid package. I recommend giving it a shot. 7 out of 10. Check it out and see for yourself. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you've seen, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the site. Don't forget to check out the other content that I've done so far, which at the moment for 24 is literally a Q&A and an Ark Nova Marine Worlds review. Don't worry, there's more to come yet. The top 100 is almost ready to start putting out videos. Until next time, remember, regardless of how well oiled your robot happens to be, it's still only a game. So bye for now and take care.